Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and happy Halloween! If I got this out on time, you're watching this on Halloween. If not, then this is a little bit awkward. So going on with the Halloween theme, I thought we would talk about ghosts today. And ghosts are definitely one of those things that are on everyone's mind during Halloween. And you know, it's one of those topics that nobody really knows if they're real, if they're not real, what they believe or not, you know. And I'm kind of in the middle, you know. I kind of do believe and I don't believe, but at the same time I have had experiences, so it kind of like makes me believe a little bit more, you know, or just kind of more curious about what's going on. And I'm more on the curious side of just like, I like to do research, like kind of just like look up people's stories, or I love to watch Ghost Adventures, and I know that those are all like really fake shows, definitely. They always see things that the camera never captures, but I love to watch them because they're very entertaining. But I don't go really beyond that. Like, I'm not gonna go out searching for, you know, if ghosts are real, and I'm not gonna like, I don't know, I'm just not gonna really delve into it, because every experience that I have had, mostly anyways for the most part, has kind of been negative, and so those kind of things scare me more than my curiosity. So as much as I'm curious about what those things are, you know, I'm more afraid of what they actually are. I don't really like to, you know, think about it too much, and probably telling all these stories that I'm going to tell you about is probably going to wake something up. So we'll see what happens after this, but I did want to tell some of the stories that I've had, you know, some of my experiences that I've had, and just kind of see what you guys have maybe experienced. The first story I want to tell you about happened in, I think, high school, slightly in first years of college, and that was at my friend Lizzie's house, and she has been in my videos previously. And she had this really old house, not too far from where I live, maybe about half an hour, just in the next city. And so it was pretty old, and it definitely made a lot of noises, like normal house settling noises that don't really scare you, because you know that it's just, you know, like a creak in the house is just the house settling. But then there were some other things that definitely was not just the house settling. Maybe the house was alive, I don't know. But either way, most of my experiences when I was there happened usually at night. I would sleep over her house a lot because my college is just a short walk away from where her house used to be. And so I used to sleep over all the time and just hang out at their house a lot. So one of the things that was kind of the constant thing that always happened when I was there, I kind of like expected it after a while, was the footsteps. They had a two-story house, and you know, there was a hallway connecting. There was one room, then a hallway, and then there was her room at the end of the hallway. And there was always footsteps that would run along the hallway, and you could very distinctly hear that they were footsteps, and they would run towards her room, and sometimes they would run away from her room. It was just like mostly at night. You could never hear them during the day really, but it was mostly during the night. And you know, of course, when you're lying there and you hear every little noise, and so that was one thing that used to like freak me out. And I do remember when I first started sleeping over, like I met her sister, Lizzie's sister, in high school, and then I became friends with Lizzie. So I was there for like the full almost 4 years and of high school. So when I was first staying there, I remember that nothing really happened, like nothing at all. Like I didn't think that the house was haunted, nothing like that. But maybe around like after 2 or 3 years of knowing Lizzie and staying over, things started to happen. And so that was one thing that was definitely constant. I knew that if I was going to sleep over the house, I would hear the footsteps. That was one thing that was very strange. And all these things Lizzie never really reacted to. She like kind of became numb to them in a way. Like she just like was like, oh yeah, that's just the footsteps. Like like it was something completely normal, just because it had happened, like I think almost ever since she had lived there. She had lived there most of her life, so it was something that she was very used to. But of course I wasn't used to that. And her door handle used to jiggle a lot as well. Like I said, the whole house was very old, and the doors were like solid wood, and like they had these little like brass handles on them that would jiggle very easily. Like you could totally just jiggle it yourself, like just by tapping it. So it would sound like somebody's like grabbing onto it and just kind of jiggling it like that. But nothing would really like come in her room, if you would say. In, I think, her mind and in my mind, her room was kind of like our little sanctuary, that like nothing would come in there. Her room had a lot of light coming in from it, so maybe that was kind of what it was, but definitely the jiggling outside the room was, you know, there, and the footsteps and everything, but nothing really came in her room, like no doors really opened or anything like that, so at least that was good, you know. Even when I stayed there, sometimes I stayed there alone, and I would hear noises, but in her room it was like completely safe. Another thing that I mentioned I would hear noises outside was this thumping, and it kind of sounded like their garage, so their garage connected to the house, and the door there, like I said, was solid wood, so when you would open it and go through and you would just let it go and it would close on its own, it would make a loud noise and you'd be able to hear it from upstairs. So even though there was nobody coming through the garage door, it sounded like somebody was opening it and slamming it closed, and that's like a very distinct sound. Like that's exactly what it sounded like nobody in the house, or all of us are in one room or something like that, and you would hear that, and it would shake the entire house. Like if you were downstairs, it would kind of sound like it was up in the attic, and if you were upstairs, it would sound like it's down in the garage, so you never really knew where it was coming from. And my other friend Shelby, we were staying at Lizzie's house one time, and Lizzie had fallen asleep like hours before. she used to be a really like early kind of sleeper, so we were still up and we were playing some game, and both of us were just on the floor playing this game, and we heard this loud thump, and it was somewhere, it sounded like something was jumping on the roof, like it just like came down on the roof. So after that we were like, okay, so time to go to bed now. Lizzie just never really reacted, but I remember very distinctly there was this one time that she did react to it, and she was actually scared, so it scared me even more. So we were up in her room, and she had this dog, Taffy. She still has the dog, Taffy, and she's just like this little Maltese Shih Tzu, I think she is, so she's really cute. And this whole time, ever since I've known Taffy and been in this house, she's never reacted to any of the noises that's been going on, and this time she did. So with this dog reacting and my friend reacting, it just really made me extremely scared. So we were up in her room, and Taffy was laying on the bed, and I think we were either reading our separate books or something like that, but we heard this really loud noise, and they used to have these really big picture frames on the walls of just like a rose or whatever. I can't remember exactly what was in it, but I think it was like flowers, but they were huge, like I'm talking 6 feet kind of photos on the wall, and it literally sounded like one of those had literally just fallen off the wall and fell on the ground. No like glass shattering, but it just kind of sounded like that kind of noise. I don't know how to explain how we thought that it was that, but that's what it sounded like. Like literally one of those just fell off the wall. So she heard it, and Taffy heard it, and Taffy, you know, perked up. And my kind of thing is like, if there's a weird noise that I don't know what it is, as long as my dog doesn't react, I don't think it's anything. Because you know how they say like dogs know when spirits are around or something like that. So in my head, if a dog or animal doesn't react to certain something, then it can't possibly be, you know, that bad. So with Taffy perking up and kind of growling or something, I can't remember if she growled or not, but in my head she did, and Lizzie reacting, and we both kind of looked at each other and we were like, what was that? And it was definitely not one of the normal, you know, thumping noises, nothing like that. So we were both extremely scared, and it was one of those moments where like the silence is like deafening between us. So finally we were like, okay, we have to go see what that was, like see if something did actually fall. So we're both going out of her room, and we're looking down, you know, into the living room, because that's where you could see from her room, and nothing was amiss, nothing like that, and none of the pictures were on the walls. They were actually off the walls, but they were like that, you know, when I got there, so it's not like it actually did fall. I remember it was there already, but we were looking for like glass or something, anything, and we went even all the way downstairs, and we looked in the garage, we looked everywhere, and it just, there was nothing to tell us like, yeah, okay, this is what you heard. So both of us were scared, and we both just kind of raced back up to the room and stayed in her room for the rest of the day, basically, until her sister got home. So I remember that was something that really stuck with me, because both Taffy and Lizzie reacted, and it was just one of those moments where it's like, okay, I kind of just don't want to sleep over tonight, and I kind of just want to go home. and one more time with Lizzie in her new house that she moved in with her dad and stepmom. So, you know, after that house, I was like, okay, you know, whatever was in there was in there. It's gonna stay there, whatever. This new house isn't so old as, you know, the previous one, so there shouldn't really be anything in there. So I kind of, I don't know, I guess got proven wrong in a way. So in this new house, her room is right across from her bathroom, and it's kind of like a guest bathroom, and it's also a two-story, but she's on the bottom floor this time. And it's right next to the garage, like the garage is to the left or whatever, and then to the right is like a little hallway, and you can go into the living room and all this kind of stuff. So basically it's about 11 o'clock at night, or maybe not 11, I think it was maybe more around 10. And her and I think that her parents are home, and so they're upstairs sleeping because they have crazy schedules with their work, so they sleep at different times during the day or night. And so they're upstairs sleeping. The kids that they have aren't home, and Lizzie decides that she wants to take a shower, so she goes and takes a shower, and she has her door open, and I'm in her bedroom. So she closes the bathroom door, and I'm just sitting on the bed facing the door into the hallway. And the light isn't on in the hallway, but just kind of like their laundry room. I know it's kind of confusing how I'm telling you the layout, but so there's the hallway, and then there's a little laundry room, and then the garage. So in the laundry room the light's on, but in the hallway the light isn't on. And you know, I'm basically facing her bathroom door, which is closed, and I hear her turn on the shower, and I'm on my iPad probably watching YouTube or something like that, and it's quiet, you know, whatever. I don't feel scared in this house whatsoever like I used to in her old house. So I'm just sitting there, and then suddenly something goes flying from the hallway into her bathroom door and then down, and it made a loud noise, and she even heard it, and I guess she thought I was knocking the door because she told me to come in. And I was just really quiet because I was like, okay, what was that, you know? And I would have definitely believed that maybe it was one of the kids playing around or whatever, but they weren't home. And you know, we were basically in the impression that no one was home. It turns out that her stepmom had gone out, but she came home and her dad was upstairs asleep. So you know, it wasn't, trust me, it wasn't anyone. I told this story before, and whenever I tell this story, they're like, oh, you know, is somebody playing a prank on you? But like literally, like, they're grown adults who don't play these kind of tricks, like, you know. And the twist is that what ended up flying from the hallway into her door was this little bar of soap that she had, and I distinctly remember that it was in her bathroom before she took a shower, because I went to go pee before she took a shower, so I saw this bar of soap. It's kind of like a decorative soap that she has in there all the time. It was on her sink, and then suddenly it was, you know, being flown from the hallway into her door, and it just went kind of underneath the door. And she heard it and I heard it, and I was just kind of there. And finally she got out of the shower, and I asked her, I was like, hey, you know, when she could hear me, I was like, hey, did you hear that? She was like, yeah. She's like, I told you to come in, like, it's fine, you can go to the bathroom. And I'm like, no, that wasn't me. I'm like, check by your door or something like that, because something flew into your door. And she looks at it, and it's that bar of soap. So we were both kind of just like, okay, you know, one of those moments where it's kind of like, okay, this was really weird, let's just kind of never talk about it again. So it was definitely strange, and I mean, nothing has happened since then. I have stayed at that house alone, dog sitting, and nothing has ever happened. So I don't know what that was, but it was definitely kind of something weird. So that was all the experiences that I've had with Lizzie in particular. I don't know why, but maybe something, like she attracts something, I don't know, but I've had mostly my experiences with her, so in her old house and this new house. But so those are my experiences with her, but it doesn't stop there. I've had more experiences aside from being around Lizzie. So next we're going to be talking about the experiences I've had in my own house, and it's not my house necessarily. I do live with my parents, but you know, just for the sake of the story, I'm going to call it my house. And so these experiences aren't anything as extreme as the experiences with Lizzie, but you know, they're still enough that I want to talk about them. So the first one is, it was quite a few years ago. We had just lost our dog, Bingo, and it was very sad, very emotional, and he was very attached to my dad, and you know, very attached to this house kind of a thing. And one time, I think like my dad was out in the family room and I was in my room, and I had my door open and he was on the computer, and I heard this noise like something falling, and I thought it was him, that he had knocked something over. So I left my room and I went to go see what it was, and he was just picking up the we had this, I think it was like a gallon or 2 gallon thing of water, and one of those that lays horizontally and you can, you know, take out the little plug and get water out of it. And he was picking it up and he said, "Oh, this fell." But what was weird about it is that literally it was on this little counter, nowhere near the edge, so that it could just fall, you know, on its own. I mean, there wasn't an earthquake, nothing like that. I do live in California, but there was not an earthquake, and it just fell. And he said that when he picked it up, it had fallen like, so it was horizontal, it had fallen like backwards, like spout up, which was kind of weird because, you know, if it's gonna fall, it's gonna fall like, you know, on its side or something like that. So that was kind of weird, but he kind of felt like it was our dog Bingo. I mean, if you don't believe that, you know, animals have spirits, leave my channel. No, I'm just kidding. But I do definitely believe that, you know, animals have spirits and they know to a certain degree what's going on. And so he believes it was our dog Bingo. So that wasn't malicious or anything like that. You know, it was just him telling us, "Hey, you know, I'm still here, you don't have to be so sad," you know, that kind of thing. The other one was terrifying and negative that I'm going to tell you right now. I was in my room and it was about maybe 11:30, I want to say. And at the time, my brother and his girlfriend were living here as well. And sometimes she would come home late from work and she would like knock on my window so that I could let her in, because, you know, the front door is locked. But she was already here that night and she was in my brother's room, and so there's no reason for that to be knocking on my window, but that night there was. And I was laying in bed and literally there was like this tapping noise, and it wasn't just like a normal tap, like, I don't know, like a bug or something like that, but it was like a very distinct 3 taps, just like a tap, tap, tap. And of course, like at the time I didn't have normal blinds, it was just a curtain. So there was always that little sliver that I could always see outside. And I just remember hearing that, and it was really quiet. I didn't have the TV on, I think I was reading. And I remember hearing that, and I just like kind of moved over so I didn't have to look out the window. And you know, most people's minds would go to that there's a person outside your window. In my mind, like, there's something something otherworldly out my window. So I was just frozen there, and I kind of just moved over so I didn't have to see the window, and I just stayed really quiet. I just stayed really still, as if that would do something. And I remember Jake was with me, and he wasn't that old at the time, but he kind of like looked at the window and he didn't really react that much to it, but he did look at it. So I was just kind of like, okay, so we're not going to react to that. I'm not going to leave my room because there's going to be something waiting for me outside the hallway. So I just literally turned on my TV and like laid down and tried to go to sleep. I think I left my light on that night along with my TV and everything. So that was definitely one of those moments where I was just kind of like, okay. It definitely made like every little hair stand up on my body, and I was just like, I'm done with this day. I'm just gonna fall asleep and it'll be light in the morning and I'll be okay. So the very last experience I had was very recent, and that was at Apex. If you don't know about Apex, it's the wolf sanctuary that I'm volunteering at. And I remember this one time I was staying over because I was watching the house and all the wolves and everything. And so I was staying in one of the rooms and I was going to take a shower. So I like to have noise, especially when I'm by myself. I like to have some kind of noise. So I turned the TV on, and I remember it was on That's So Raven, and it was like an old rerun episode on Disney Channel. And I remember watching that, and I was ready to take a shower. So I leave it on that. There's cats inside the room with me, and I go and I turn the water on, and I can hear, you know, That's the Raven playing, and then suddenly something switches, and I'm like, I hear like a "hey" on the TV, and it's some guy, and I'm like, that's not what I had on there, you know. It was kind of strange. So I go back out and I look, and the channel had changed, and it was this weird TV show. Like, when I walked into the room, it was some guy with a cowboy hat on shooting some other guy. Like, it was some kind of like not old western, but like a modern kind of western story, and I was kind of like, okay, that's strange. And so I thought it was the cats that had stepped on it, because, you know, cats step on whatever, but they were both curled up next to each other on the bed, and it had been like, I hadn't left the TV on for like 5 minutes after the channel had changed, so I know that they couldn't have possibly stepped on it and then just gone and curled up and fall asleep, you know. So it was very weird, and I mentioned it to the directors, and Paula told me that she thinks that the place is haunted but by good spirits, and that they're like old mining town spirits, because that whole area around it, like this whole area where I kind of live, was like a big area in the gold rush. So she thinks that, you know, it was just like a good ghost just kind of being like, hey, I'm here, you know, which I'm like, yeah, okay, I know that there's good spirits and everything like that, but like I don't want any spirits to really come to me, you know. I really don't want them to tell me that they're here. Like, it's okay if you're here, hang out, but just stay quiet, please, because, you know, it scares me to hear anything. So that was kind of strange that it was like a cowboy, you know, kind of show. But that's the most recent thing that I've had happen to me. Nothing else has happened since then. Like I said, probably something will now that I've talked about this, but I just wanted to talk about these stories because it is Halloween, and I think it's kind of fun to share these experiences. So if you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up, and please do tell me all of your little ghost stories in the comments down below, and tell me what you think about my own stories. And I really just want to hear all of your experiences for sure, because I love that kind of stuff. And all my social media will be down in the description below, and subscribe for more videos in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.